rated number 1.
Oh, well, that's bad news for Dingbat Charlie. He's gonna be crushed.
This is the Jim Villanucci Show with producer Billy Cornelius.
Oh.
On the Talk Monster, 770 KKOB.
All right, Janice Arnold-Jones is here. She's running for the Congress in our district. If you have questions or comments, you can call in right now at 243-3333. So, what in the news is, and I ask this because you're a former talk show host, so we can just talk. What in the news has interested you lately?
Well, clearly the payroll tax discussion, the suspension of the tax is going to end at the end of the year. And, of course, Congress just said, we can't keep taking money out of that pot without putting money back into it. So, interesting discussion.
Well, first of all, do you think with the economy the way it is that we need to keep that payroll tax holiday going?
No.
Okay.
And the reason I don't, taxes come in many different places. This is the one place that you don't suspend that tax. You take the tax elsewhere out of. You can lower the tax rate on income. You can lower the tax rate in several other places. But this one, there is a guaranteed payout. That doesn't go to the general fund. That is simply an
Social Security, right?
Exactly. And so you can't take out more than what you put in, and that's where we are.
Okay. What else? Christmas?
Christmas, yeah, absolutely.
Is there a war on Christmas?
I think in some places there are, and then there are other times I think, well, maybe that war has ceased, but certainly not in our schools. How about you? Are you taking off for Christmas?
I am actually. I'm taking off. I'll be off. I got 2 more weeks, and then I'm off until Iowa caucus. What about the Republican presidential race?
Boy, very interesting. I liked listening to Herman Cain, and this process is clearly brutal.
Was there too many debates, or were the debates useful?
Well, I think that they were useful. I think it's important for people to see how the candidates think, and I think we did that. But there is a part of the debates that when you put out substantive material, it's more fodder to literally excoriate anybody who chooses to raise their hand. And what I see in our country is we need people to raise their hand to serve.
So, I mean, I'm assuming, and most people are, it's a 2-man race right now.
Who do you think? Because the last time I visited with you, it was Perry and Romney, and that's not the case now.
No, it's Gingrich and Romney, and that's the way it's going to be until Iowa. I mean, we're only 3 weeks and some away from Iowa. I mean, if you had to choose between those guys, do you have a favorite?
Well, I do lean towards Newt Gingrich because I like the historical aspect. I know that he knows government. Does he have a lot of baggage? I hope to goodness that he has learned from all of those things.
Is he stable enough to run? This is my problem because I'm undecided, and I'm leaning towards Romney again, if these are my 2 choices. I mean, is he stable enough to go the long haul against Obama? I mean, if he gets the nomination, say, in March or April or whenever.
Well, I guess the measure...
Or does he blow himself up at some point like he seems to do?
Well, he might. So 2 different things that are happening here. So are we talking about is he able to run a campaign or run the country? And I'm not necessarily sure that they are the same.
Well, you got to do both. You got to win if you're going to run the country.
Absolutely.
All right, hang on. A couple lines open if you want to talk to Janice Arnold-Jones. She's running for the Congress. 243-3333 is our number. And we'll be taking your calls on the other side.
Stig tonight at 7. Jim Villanucci right now on 770 KKOB, 770KKOB.com.
9 minutes after the hour, Janice Arnold-Jones is our guest. She's running for the Congress. So, another Bill Richardson scandal.
Indeed. Boy, is that one...
Do you think they're finally going to get him on something?
Of all of the scandals that they've talked about, this one probably has more teeth to it because...
And it's pretty easy to understand.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I understand. Now, I'm just hearing some back chatter, but I understand that there is some non-payment of taxes, and that's kind of...
How they get you.
That's how they got to the point that they got to, so...
Yeah. What's going on with the AG?
Do you know what? I understand that he keeps saying that he is going after Medicaid fraud trials, but all of the other things are just sitting idle. I actually saw Rebecca Hill-Haron the other day.
Yeah.
And can you imagine being in her shoes, right or wrong? This has just gone on and on and on, and there is no motion from the AG's office, so I don't know, maybe he's on vacation.
What about the spaceport?
I am a fan of the spaceport, and I have said consistently that we will make it in this nation, and we will serve our nation because we will have the ability to provide payload into space, and I think we're starting to see that investment pay off.
How about members of Congress legal insider trading?
Boy, doesn't that just make you mad?
Oh, yeah.
And so
Do you think, is Bingaman one of those guys? I mean, because he has churned his portfolio more than just about anybody. He's made millions.
He has. So maybe for the voters, the standard of voting somebody, an incumbent back in, is how much did their portfolio grow? And for most of us, and I will just tell you, my service in the state legislature, that cost me about $16,000 a year out of my pocket. If you are truly in it for public service, your portfolio doesn't grow exponentially, and that's what I think we're talking about.
Would you support a stock act if that was brought to the floor, if you were elected to the Congress?
You could, great question. But the truth is even if you pass something like that, when you are that close to the action, you can get around it.
Right.
I think you have to elect people of character, and you have to measure that character in the total.
You're going to give the tips to your friends and family and people that can get the money back to you somehow. I mean, it's almost impossible to police this.
But people of character behave
Right,
differently.
right.
They don't go around ripping off the taxpayer or simply enriching themselves by their public service.
Zane, you're on 770. Go ahead.
Hi there. I just had a quick question. If you would ever support any type of assault weapons ban, or do you also support the bill that just passed in the House, H.R. 822, which is the national reciprocity bill that would allow you to carry concealed firearms in other states that you currently don't have reciprocity with on a national level?
Zane, thanks. I thought that the reciprocity was a long time overdue. It is very complicated for anybody who is carrying concealed to continue to obey all of those laws. But if you're carrying concealed, how does law enforcement know better that they have a visibility of who is carrying concealed through a database? So I think it was long overdue.
Alan, you're on 770. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Jim. Great show, as always. I just want to make a quick comment. About a year ago, you were lamenting that something wasn't getting done in Congress, and you said, well, I'd just like to get 10 common sense Republicans and 10 common sense Democrats
Right.
into a room and let them make decisions.
Right.
Well, I almost laughed out loud.
Okay.
However, listening to your guest today, I'm like, wow, this is one of those common sense politicians that Jim was talking about. So kudos.
Well, my point was that if you're going to do a Social Security reform, you can a member of Congress cannot touch Social Security without getting creamed. But if you lock 10 Republicans and 10 Democrats in a room, they come up with a plan, and nobody knows who was what and who did what. They just did the right thing, and then your name's not on, I'm the one that lowered the COLAs, or I'm the one that hired the retirement age, or I'm the one that took it away from rich people. You do the right thing, and you maintain your political viability. Otherwise, I don't think it gets done. I mean, and do you have any thoughts on that?
I think the standard that our forefathers set was to work until you got agreement, which is not compromise. Agreement is very hard. And when you get to agreement, then everybody comes out together and says, this is the best path forward. And I think we have lost sight of working for agreement for our nation.
Is it true that we haven't had a budget for almost 2 years?
950 some odd days.
Yeah.
Not to be specific or anything.
Has that ever happened before? I can't imagine.
I don't believe so. And the downside of not having a budget is the contracts that are caught in the middle. At Sandia National Labs, they are on continuing resolution. Every time you're on a continuing resolution, there is this sort of a rule that says that the budget will continue, but 20% less. Pretty soon you have nothing.
It just seems like in the 90s that Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich and Bob Dole and Villanucci and these guys were able to get together and put together deals, and I don't say deal in a bad way, but get stuff done that was good for the country. Are we so polarized now that we don't have the Villanuccis up there? We don't have the people that are able to make good deals with the other side?
not sure if we don't have them, but I think they don't know one another. And one of the things that is...
I mean, I hear Barack Obama went a year and a half without ever calling McConnell.
Can you imagine?
I mean,
so how invested is he in our government and in this country?
It seems like he's above, like, the nuts and bolts of politics or governing.
There's something terribly wrong when the executive, whose policy comes from the legislative branch, has no communication with them. Something terribly wrong.
Mike, you're on 770. Go ahead.
Hi, question for Janice Arnold-Jones. I do apologize if this is less pertinent considering that you're running for Congress now, but talked to you a couple times in the past few years about the group home issue. Anything you can add to that considering the current circumstances?
And what is Mike is talking about is we have a conflict between the Fair Housing Act and the definition of a group home as written by the city and also by the state, and in the middle of that is a gap, and it is literally destroying some of our neighborhoods, especially all over Albuquerque, because it allows group homes without enough supervision or enough controls where the people who are being housed there are in an unsafe condition. But can you imagine having 8 for-profit entities, group homes in a single neighborhood? It actually ruins the character of the neighborhood. So the answer to the long answer there, Mike, is I don't have any new information. It is very hard to get visibility of this issue. And let me just tell you again, group homes are an issue in Albuquerque. The other place that they have hit is in Clovis. But other states have dealt with this, and so they come to New Mexico, and it is ripe for fraud.
All right, Janice Arnold-Jones is our guest. She's running for the Congress. Give us a call at 243-3333, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
Savage later tonight at 9. Jim, Villanucci right now on 770 KKOB. 770KKOB.com.
20 minutes after the hour, Janice Arnold-Jones is our guest. She's running for the Congress in this district. Bill, the plumber, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, Janice.
Hey, Bill, how are you?
I've been wonderful. Business has been good the last few days with the freeze.
Boy, I'm glad to hear that for you, but I'm sorry for your customers. Boy, that's a mess.
I've never discussed this particular issue with you. I'm pretty libertarian on it. But how would you feel about removing or reducing the federal government's war in, the drug war, their role in the drug war, and letting the states and local and county governments decide what they want to do with that?
Isn't that a good question, but it's kind of a gotcha question for a Republican primary, isn't it?
Well, probably is, but I think it's worth discussing. And Bill, the answer is, my head says, oh my goodness, we have spent millions of dollars on a drug war and we have accomplished absolutely zip.
Do we need more treatment as opposed to less incarceration?
Perhaps we need more of that, but my heart tells me that when you use gateway drugs, including marijuana, that it impacts families in a way that I find unacceptable. And I believe, Bill, we're going to have this upfront public discussion about how are we going to deal with this. And we've done this with DWI, maybe not with any greater success, but if we don't start dealing with it because of the impact on the drug cartels on our borders, it is killing towns like Espanola in particular. So what are we going to do? Clearly what we're doing isn't working. I'm open for the discussion.
Dave, you're on 770. Go ahead.
Janice, nice speaking to you again.
Hi, Dave.
Hi. I'm asking you a question. I know you can't answer it, but what are they going to do about the Republican Party higher-ups? This election shows that these people don't go with the people. Like, you're a candidate that I would vote for in a heartbeat, but they'll throw some candidate that they want, not the people want, like what's happening to Gingrich and what happened to Kane. The Republican Party doesn't back their own people. And I'm hoping that maybe New Mexico would get the idea, because in the last election, I'll be honest with you, you should have been the governor, the elected governor. They just went with a Hispanic name. They knew darn well they'd get Susanna elected. But we need people that are going to mean something when they get elected, not just because the Republican Party wants them placed in there, but you are a candidate that is outstanding. You know what you're talking about. You know the situation. Yet I've seen for the last 50 years, the Republican Party sits back and doesn't back their own candidates.
All right. So the way we do elections, is it unfair? Is it? I mean, is there too much money in it? Is there too much special interest in it? I mean,
well, and look at Russia right this minute. So, is our system unfair? Is it imperfect? Absolutely, except for all the rest. And I want to, Dave, and thank you for all those kind words, but I think that the way that we can change what is happening and is for us each to be involved. And that's what I like about the presidential debates. I can't remember a time where there was so much discussion, so much vetting.
Yeah, but should CNN decide who's on stage, or should the Republican Party say, if you're a two-term governor, you deserve to be on stage, and we're going to decide who's on stage?
And as you know, having been the recipient of decisions like that, I hate that. But again, it is still better than what we have. But I think it's really up to the citizens, and we can go around the media. We just have to pay attention. And I'd say that, Jim, because I know that the American people, when they really want to change this government, they're going to stand up and do so.
Sal, you're on 770. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. The president's going around with class warfare, and it's rich versus poor, but I don't see that anymore. What I see is two classes in America: the tax-paying class, and then the non-tax-paying class, who actually get some sort of return from the federal government just because they file a paper on April 15th. So my question, and I want specifics here from our candidate for Congress: what would you do to ensure, number one, that the tax-paying class isn't just supporting the non-tax-paying class, number one. Number two, that the non-tax-paying class would actually contribute something so that they have an equal dog in the fight, and that when taxes are raised, they feel the pinch too, and will complain to elected representatives such as Congress members.
Sal, great question, right up my alley. So first and foremost, whoever goes to Congress has got to deal with the debt and the deficit. And in order to do that, we have got to clean up our tax code. I have long been an advocate for low, broad, fair, equitable, easy to understand, easy to administer taxes. And when I say low, broad, fair, I mean everybody pays something. And when you have a tax code that is 4 feet high, and if you have enough money, you can get away with anything, that's wrong. It should be predictable, and we should be creating certainty in that tax code. All of this is possible. But Sal, you're absolutely right. When we divide Americans by those who pay taxes and those who do not pay taxes, you are trying to divide and destroy our country. We've got to stop it.
So everybody should pay $1, something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Easy to do.
All right.
27 minutes past.
Coast to coast later tonight at 11. Jim Villanucci right now on 770 KKOB, 770KKOB.com.
35 minutes after the hour, Janice Arnold-Jones is our guest. She's running for the Congress. What's the website?
It is www.janice2012.us, and that's Janice, Janice.
So back to the 2012 horse race. You think Gary Johnson's gotten a raw deal?
Oh, I do.
Do you blame him for going libertarian at this point?
I don't. It is very irritating when even the people in your own party will not stand up for you for access. I thought he at least had the credentials of Huntsman. Huntsman has been up there. So what is the arrangement between CNN and the Republican Party, if there is one? But right now, the only discussion in town is between the Republican candidates for president, because I don't believe that the Democrats are going to run anyone against the president.
And you haven't decided on who you like?
In fact, I got a text message saying, "Oh, you've decided for Newt." Well, that's not true. I like Newt because he is a historian, but I recognize the amount of baggage that he has. I respect Romney for his executive acumen and skills. He has a ton of baggage. I love what Ron Paul has to say, but I wonder if he will catch fire. I like Gary Johnson. I think Rick Santorum has said some terrific things, but he has been cut off. And let us not leave out Michelle Bachmann. She has some very thoughtful things. But so tell me what you think about this field. You think it's been narrowed. I really like some of the things that Herman Cain had to say.
Well, yeah, I never really considered him a serious candidate. I think he was selling books. But I unless there's some surprise out of Iowa, and there could be a Santorum surprise. There could be a Huntsman surprise in New Hampshire. There could be all kinds of things. I am assuming it's a two-man race. Unless...
And you don't think Perry's going to come back?
No. And God, I hope not.
So, in your perspective, though, these debates actually sifted out Perry as someone who couldn't
immediately.
stand up on
Immediately. All right, we will continue with Janice, Arnold-Jones, Maxine, Jack, Earl, and James. Hang on. We'll be right back to you. Yobi.
Stig tonight at 7. Jim, Dylan, and G right now on 770 KKOB. 770KKOB.com.
41 minutes after the hour, Janice Arnold-Jones is our guest. She's running for the Congress in this district here. Maxine, you're on 770. Go ahead.
Well, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
The thing is, just one comment before I ask my question, and I will say again, I grew up in parts of Texas and Oklahoma that had extended prohibition. Most women did not smoke, people didn't drink, and we never heard of drugs. And it was wonderful. I enjoyed every minute of it. But now to get to what concerns me now, Europe, particularly English banks, that is a matter of great concern. If you have any further comments you would like to make on that, I'd be happy to hear them.
Wow, Maxine, what is happening in Europe, especially with the euro, is going to hit us like a train of dominoes. And I don't see any way to escape it, except that we can take some steps so that we are not in the same boat. You cannot continue to loan money and then not have the productivity that supports it. You just cannot do it, and there's no place else for Europe to go. So we're going to feel the pain.
Earl, you're on with Janice. Go ahead.
Yes, thanks for taking my call. Ms. Jones, I wanted to get your opinion and comment on the process to site and need for the new Chemical Metallurgical Research Laboratory, a.k.a. the Plutonium Pit Facility at Los Alamos Lab.
Yeah, Earl, thank you for the question. That has been on the books for, I believe, at least 10 years. But as we move forward, that type of research is truly only available to the government, should be shared. I hope we're able to go forward with it. Would be excellent for the state of New Mexico.
Jack, you're on 770. Go ahead.
Yes, Janice, I'm sorry. I am kind of concerned. I feel like our Constitution has been under fire here lately. Would you support an amendment to our Constitution that any law that is passed by the federal government also applies to those who are passing the law, congressmen and senators, etc.?
Jack, I'm asked this question frequently, and I am very reluctant to tinker with the Constitution, but I'm going to ask you to step up. And if you see somebody who is serving you in Congress who thinks they are above the Constitution, you need to fire them. And I believe that no matter what law you passed, as an example, in 1978, Congress passed a law that there would be a balanced budget, that in fact, that expenditures would not exceed the revenue. Signed into law by Jimmy Carter. It didn't take. You need people of character.
Bob, you're on 770. Go ahead.
Yeah, Janice, you nailed that one, as I knew you would. I'm in favor of repealing virtually every amendment. But on the taxation, do you think that we should repeal the 16th Amendment and stop taxing workers and come up with another method of taxation?
Bob, that's a great question. When we are taxing, so let me just say that the problem with our taxation is that we have tried to target groups rather than distribute it across the nation where everybody pays. So repealing the 16th Amendment, we may not be able to use an input other than income as a baseline, but I think we ought to look at it. And when I say low, broad, fair, equitable, easy to understand, easy to administer, I am not joking, but I also understand that no government can exist on a single input, that is, whether it is just income tax or, say, just fossil fuel tax. You have to distribute the tax load among everybody.
Sarah, you're on 770. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much for being on the show. Our state is the top 7th in the nation for pedestrian fatality rate. And what would you do if you got elected to improve our traffic safety here? And do you support a red light camera for our state?
Sarah, thank you. I do support the use of technology for safety purposes. I believe that our police officers should be dispatched to the more serious crimes, and traffic safety to me is something that is just a matter of discipline for the drivers. But you raise a really interesting question about pedestrian fatalities. And I have to ask you, Sarah, when you see people crossing in the middle of the streets, especially
Well, that's the problem.
with children in tow, what are they thinking?
Yeah.
And who trained them up?
Yeah, and a lot of drunks, too.
Is there a law that can prevent that, though? I mean,
Oh, there's a law. You have to have
parent law? I mean,
I think it's jaywalking.
It is jaywalking, but we still do it, and people take short.
You hear about this? People just walking across the street there. All right, we'll continue with Janice Arnold-Jones. Couple lines open. 243-3333 is our number.
77 KKOB.
52 minutes after the hour, Janice Arnold-Jones is a candidate for Congress. She's with us. Tom, go ahead. Hello, Tom.
You there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the communists say that people that vote don't count. The people that count the vote that count. And I want to know how are you going to make sure the elections are fair? And how do you fire anybody if the elections aren't fair?
Great question, Tom. And I unfortunately, what you are saying is where we are in our country. We don't trust our government any longer for a number of reasons. Having looked at our voting system and having had the privilege of being in other countries, we have it pretty good, but you have to make sure that people have confidence in the vote. The counting part, when we had the hanging chads, what is remarkable about our country is we went forward. Clearly, 50% of the country said they didn't win, but we went forward as a nation. That is a remarkable statement. In other countries, you don't see that. And I'm going to offer to you Russia. Look at what is happening.
Bob, you're on 770. Go ahead.
Yes, great programs this evening. As a victim of domestic violence and also being a male, I feel I've been discriminated against, but now we've got the Violence Against Women's Act, and I want to know your position on the fact that there is absolutely no funding for male adult victims of domestic violence.
Bob, I am not familiar with the act that's going through, but I have long known that males were the hidden victims. Whether this was in the early 70s when I was working on repairing the rape statutes and creating rape crisis centers, and even today, it is one of those hidden things that men oftentimes don't talk about, but it is clearly there. And if we have a law that does not take that into consideration, shame on us, and we need to do a better job.
Melanie, you're on 770. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Janice, New Mexico is heavily dependent on the federal government for jobs and financial support. I know many people that have children that are out of work or can't find a job. I'd like to know what you would do to promote or encourage private sector jobs in our state.
Melanie, that is a great question, and I would like to tell you that it's going to be an immediate response. But one of the things that we have to do to promote private sector jobs in the state of New Mexico is to stop allowing the regulatory agencies to operate by ambush. As long as there is so much uncertainty, new businesses simply are not going to hire, and existing businesses the same, but businesses will not come into the state as long as the environment is so uncertain. You only have X amount of capital, and if you can't count on what your risks are, you will go elsewhere. We have got to change that dynamic in the state.
Bernard, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes. As a person who has been in business a long time, there's something I'd like to have Janice comment on. Up till about 10 years ago, every economist, when they would talk about the GNP, would put in a footnote that said that somewhere between 15 and 20% of the reported GNP was underreported by up to 20% because of all of the off-the-books jobs, sales, and so on. Every one of us is involved in this gray market every single day, and a very significant number of the people who are on welfare and on unemployment actually have off-the-books income. Now, I know there's nothing that can be done about it. We don't want a police state, but we at least ought to be able to include that in the statistics so that we actually know what we're talking about when we propose answers to economic problems.
Well, Bernard, I think you make a good point. What you're saying is what I believe to be the truth. But it does raise the questions of why do we have laws and we choose not to enforce them? As an employer, I was required to fill out the I-9s. I was required, and it was my responsibility to make sure that they were legally able to work in the state, that we followed the law. So why is it that we have laws that we don't want to enforce across the board? And I believe the answer is we need to start looking at those laws that make sense and those that don't, because otherwise you will never have a reasonable projection.
All right, we're going to keep you just till the bottom of the hour, and then we're going to talk about the 2012 horse race for this Thursday. 57.
This is the Jim Villanucci Show. He's all over today's hot topics like a rash. Here's Jimbo on 770 KKOB.
All right, Janice, Arnold-Jones to the bottom of the hour, and then we're going to talk about the 2012 horse race and then get into some open topics. A couple lines open if you want to call in. 243-3333. What's going on with the sand dune lizard?
The Environment Department put the decision off. They just kicked it down, the can down the road, waiting to make the decision. But I think the sand dune lizard, along with the snail darter out in the San Joaquin Valley, the silvery minnow, and even the spotted owl, is an issue about land and not the species. And I don't know how our government got so off track in terms of trying to take private property in the name of endangered species. I don't know anybody who doesn't want to preserve as many life forms as possible, but what they are trying to preserve is extraterritorial places for the species, when in fact the species can be preserved in other areas.
I mean, I'm all for preserving species too, but first of all, I don't believe that like one of these little lizards dies and the whole ecosystem comes tumbling down.
Amazing thought, isn't it?
I find that hard to believe. And second of all, I mean, is there a place where we could put these tortoises and lizards and minnows and preserve them to make sure we always have them and you know, not harm the economy?
Oh, absolutely.
It's a zoo, right?
You know, it's something like a place where you got a bunch of different kind of animals, right?
Well, let's talk about the biopark and
various cages of different sizes.
And you take your kids to look at them, right, and feed them, and
you can charge $8 for a hot dog, even.
Yeah. And then there could be like places like that where you could pet the things.
Like a petting zoo of some sort.
You're onto something.
But you know, the silvery minnows are actually kept at the biopark, or at least they used to, and they were propagating, and they had to get extra tanks. So what does that tell you? Is it the river, or is it just making sure that they have a place to survive and breed?
All right, we'll continue. If you've got questions for Janice Arnold-Jones, candidate for Congress, call in right now real quick. 243-3333.
Stig tonight at 7. Jim Villanucci right now on 770 KKOB. 770KKOB.com.
9 minutes after the hour, Janice Arnold-Jones, candidate for Congress, is with us till the bottom of the hour. If you want to call in, 243-3333. Kat, you're on 770. Go ahead. Hello? Kat? All right. I think it sounds like something like a Steuben glass pitcher or something just like fell and then Kat was gone.
Yeah.
It was weird. What do you think the issues are going to be in the primary?
I think the issues are going to be experience, what the course of Congress is going to be, and you can't avoid the debt and the deficit. It is the greatest threat to our national security. I hope to goodness we're going to talk about tax simplification. I hope we're going to talk about energy policy. And I sincerely hope that part of the discussion is how the congressional delegation is going to make the case for New Mexico and Washington, because, Jim, we're going to be on the chopping block.
David, you're on 770. Hello.
Yeah, hi, Janice. So where are we at on the issues with the children's and families courts and that kind of thing in your camp?
Dave, thanks for the call and bringing it up. I'm always looking at it. Is it rising to the level of the debt and the deficit? No, but I know it is very important to you, so I always keep it in the forefront of my mind.
Sean, you're on 770. Go ahead.
Yeah, number one, Janice for president. Janice, I really do appreciate the good work you do for us. Then the comment I have is my folks came out here in the early 1940s and they told me stories of when the Rio Grande River would run dry, completely dry in Albuquerque because it was before the dams. And somehow the silvery minnow managed to survive, strangely enough.
Isn't that amazing? You know, Sean, in the early 60s and 70s, I used to ride my horse across the Rio Grande. And when I say I rode it across, it's because it was dry.
Do you think there's going to be any differentiators in the primary between you and Mr. Lewis and I guess this Mr. Smith?
I think they're going to be a great differentiation. You know, and I think Dan Lewis is a terrific, young, ambitious guy, but not very much experience. I have never spoken to Mr. Smith. And what I bring to the voters of New Mexico is the privilege of having served in the New Mexico legislature. You know, legislative process takes a little bit of practice. And so one of the things that I know right this minute is you send me to Congress, and when the president issues an executive order that trumps on the role of Congress or steps on the Constitution itself, I will be screaming from the rafters, because that is the role of Congress. But you have to understand that that is your job and you have to do it.
Janice, you're on with Janice. Go ahead.
Hi, I would like to know how she would vote on this so-called payroll tax holiday, which is nothing but depleting money from the Social Security tax.
Yeah.
So now
she's actually on your side on that. We talked about it in the last hour, but hang on and listen.
I would say, Janice, what a great name, Janice. You're absolutely right. You cannot rob Peter to pay Paul. That is a flawed policy if we're going to sustain and make any of the commitments for Social Security. You cannot take the break there.
Phil, you're on 770. Go ahead.
Yeah, do you think the Citizens United Supreme Court ruling was a good idea, and would you be in favor of a constitutional amendment saying that corporations are not natural persons, and that money is not speech? Thank you.
One, I am not in favor of tinkering very much with the Constitution, but I did not agree with that ruling. And I do not believe that people and corporations are the same thing. They are not.
How do you make elections more fair? I mean, are they publicly financed? Is there limits on how much you can spend? Is there a way to give good people who maybe aren't rich or aren't sellouts a way into this?
Well, my inclination is that the free market should be able to help us have free, good elections. But when I look at the judge elections, one of the things that they do is it is a publicly financed election. Does that take them out of the appearance of impropriety? Yes, but I really do cling to the fact that you should be able to use everything that you can to get elected without limitation. But the other side of it is, Jim, people like me, I'm a working stiff. We're just an average family. I have been blessed with great gifts of being able to pursue policy, but the money part is a booger.
And you're going to get outspent.
I am.
Janice, you're back on. Go ahead.
Thank you. I have a question about immigration. Do you favor any kind of amnesty or in whatever form, allowing the people that are here to stay under some new law? Do you support passing new laws to allow people to stay here, or do you simply want the laws that we have now enforced? And what would you do about the border fence? Would you appropriate money to get it all fenced or not?
Wow, I need another hour there on that one, Janice, but let me tick down a few things. On the border, a fence is a silly idea in that it is not effective, but we have the technology and we have the manpower to secure our border right now. We need to do so. With regard to immigration, boy, I would like to have a much wider discussion on this issue. And I'm a real pragmatist. There are arguably 11 million people here illegally. I don't like the fact that people broke our laws to get here, but the vast majority came here to have a better life, and they are behaving as good citizens. So how do you deal with that issue and not reward the fact that there was an illegal act? And I have thrown out a couple of ideas, and Jim, let me try one on you. So what if we decide that there is a period that people who are here in this country illegally have to fess up and sign up, and if they don't, that they become criminals and we're going to send them out of the country. But the people who sign up, what if we say, look, you have to choose to be a citizen, and that course is you have to do all of those things to become a citizen, but when you have actually passed that citizenship test, the penalty for having broken the law is withholding your ability to vote for X amount of years. And I offer this as we've got to find ways to talk about this rather than simply denigrating families. You know them and I know them, Jim, who have been here and they've been good. They have acted like good citizens even though they got here illegally. And I don't like the fact that our immigration system does not work. And that's the other thing, Janice, we have to do is we have to decide to have an immigration policy that works. One of the other things we could do is, as we simplify our tax code, instead of letting all the IRS agents go, move them over into the INS so we have a system that actually works.
All right, we'll have one more segment with Janice, and then we'll update you on the 2012 Republican presidential horse race. 243-3333 is our number. We got 2 lines open if you want to call in real quick here, and we'll be right back, Fatty.
Savage later tonight at 9. Jim Villanucci right now on 770 KKOB. 770KKOB.com.
21 minutes after final segment with Janice, Arnold-Jones, and then we're going to update you on the 2012 horse race. Arthur, you're on 770. Hello.
Hello, how you doing? Janice, you hit a hot button of mine, and that's the immigration problem we have. And I've been milling over an idea that I'd like to throw at you.
Cool.
Okay. One of the big things we have is the so-called anchor baby.
Yes.
And how does this sound? They come over, we give them the best prenatal and postnatal care that possibly we can afford, give them. And then the child is a minor, give him his citizenship papers, give him back to his parents, and send his parents back to Mexico. And when he's 18, he can make the decision whether or not he wants to live in Mexico or the United States, and then he can come across the border at that time.
So I'm going to be a legislator here and ask you how that makes it better.
He's gone. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. We call these people illegal immigrants, and technically they are. But the government basically kind of said, we kind of need you, so we're going to look the other way, so come on in. So are they illegal, really?
Well, I think if we are a nation of laws, then they are illegal. But I think the fact that the nation looked the other way and did not enforce its laws sends a very conflicting message, and that's the problem. And so you've got to decide.
And 2/3 of them have been here for 10 years. Half of them have legal kids.
Or longer, and that's probably the heartbreak is what about the children that came with them as babies who have nothing to do with this, and we're attempting to visit the sins of the parents on these children. There are lots of issues, and I know people get mad over the social services that they consume. So maybe we need to talk about them in different groups, and those who want to just take the social services as a way of not working, maybe that's a whole separate group, and we need to talk about them differently than the people who are here acting as good citizens.
Bob, you're on 770. Go ahead.
I want to commend Janice because she's open, she's willing, she's talking. You said several things that I just think are unbelievably smart. Of course, I was already on your side, so that's neither here nor there. But Ben Franklin was the one who signed the Declaration, and then he signed the Constitution. He said this is the worst document we could agree on. Didn't mean to it. He just said it's the best we could agree on. And that's why I give you the highest kudos I can for being so open-minded, being able to discuss things that people can agree on. And thank you, Janice.
Bob, thank you.
Ian, you're on 770. Go ahead.
Hey, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm an illegal immigrant. As you guys all already know, I keep calling your show. I pay taxes. I have a business. I employ people. I have saved 4 American citizens whose homes are going into foreclosure, gave them jobs. They paid off they paid off their debt, and they're still living in their homes. So I think that the system has to have a filtration where you're going to weed out the bad guys and leave the good guys.
I'm with you.
I'm too.
Good job, man. Rory, you're on 770. Go ahead.
Hey, Janice, this is Rory.
Hi, Rory.
Got a question for you that I know the answer already. Do you want to explain just how modernized our immigration process is as far as paperwork?
Rory, thank you for that. One of the problems with our immigration system is paper-based. Of all of the systems that we have chosen not to enforce and not to beef up, it is immigration. And so, Jim, when you say that our country has chosen not to have an immigration policy, you can look in many different places. But let's begin with the fact that every application is paper-based.
I know you're kind of an expert on this. Give me 90 seconds on net neutrality.
Wow. Well, net neutrality is a piece of legislation that says, can businesses actually take over the free enterprise of the network and then decide who has access and when? The opposition or the other side of net neutrality is too much government control. It is a very weighty issue. And so for those of you who are not sure what I'm talking about with net neutrality, I'm talking about access to the internet. And there are a lot of questions about whether certain companies actually slow down your access if you are not actually on their system as a way to force you to make another decision. The other side, Jim, is do you let the government do this? And what happens if our government runs amok and then has complete control of the net? So those are some of the issues that go around in net neutrality.
All right. Janice Arnold-Jones, candidate for Congress, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And I want all of your listeners to know that we take volunteers. We are having a great time. It's a lot of work. There are a lot of issues. Give me a call or go to my website, www.janice2012.us. That's JANICE.
All right. When we come back, we're going to talk about the state of the 2012 horse race and maybe some other things.